Hello, hello. All right. Finally calmed down. Finally got my shit together. Wanted to keep up the charismatic streaming instead of the screaming because that's just a way of venting over things that have happened in the past. And every podcast is like 20% therapy session, but 2 episodes in a row exclusively focused on things that have happened in the past. No correlation to major historical events. No major lessons to learn other than, well, hope this one guy stopped doing that shit instead of planning on inflicting it on a bunch of other people. But it is what it is. I was just thinking that Kiwi Farms does not really matter. It's very interesting that they bring up terms a lot like Dunning-Kruger and parasocial and well, they love to call other people stupid, but in reality, it is one of the stupidest places that you could spend time. And it's not meant to spend time. It's meant to store data. I would post a whole bunch of pictures of trees and birds and flowers and all sorts of lovely things so that people could absorb that, especially in the winter time when suicides are very high, and get a little bit healthier, get a little bit happier. That was what I chose to do with a large portion of my time there. But frankly, that's not what the site's for. The site is for storing the personal data of individuals who have made themselves such public enemies that they do have energy around them. That's the entire Keemstar method, is taking that energy and then turning it into a carnival show. And it is very parasocial. And a lot of the people who are really excited to make a threat about people are only really excited to parasocially attack into what they can get out of that negative energy radiating off of that person. It doesn't really move the needle. It's the individual that's moving the needle. And so any website you choose to do this modern version of people watching, this neo people watching that has taken the place of the old, habit of just sitting on a bench and looking at life passing you by. Anybody who wants to continue this, continue it in any way, shape, or fashion that they want. And it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what a couple of people are saying. It literally doesn't matter what 5 out of 1,000 people are doing if you stay focused, if you don't let that annoyance land in your head and become a mechanism by which you have to respond and you have to involve yourself. Instead, you could learn C, and you could learn C++, and you can learn how to construct computers out of codes, like from scratch, which is C, and then you could learn how to construct computers that aren't dog shit, that don't run off of cloud garbage, that aren't subject to being hacked constantly like Java, cloud garbage like Python, or unscribable crud like Rust. Which is the reason why Null is learning Rust, so that he can make his code particularly obscured. As I said, he's a very intelligent person. I wish him well. Like, genuinely, I'm pissed off at the shit he's done in the past, but I wish him well in the future, because what, like, oh, yeah, I hope he does. No, it's not gonna solve anything. It's not gonna solve anything. And I never wished, violence or negative shit on him, regardless. So, today, I have some construction going out of my street, and this is good because I've been really looking forward to an opportunity to find a way to play around with my audio. But here in the soundproof room, like, especially in there, like, you get nothing. You don't get anything that comes out of the environment. And so it's nice that I got some pretty serious construction equipment on my street so that I can play around with my audio settings and figure out the best way of minimizing background noise and maximizing my own cruddy input. And over time, I guarantee you, I'm going to develop more and more accents and impressions, just as I used to do, and I genuinely have the opportunity to do that, thanks to, I wouldn't have if it wasn't for the fact that my parents paid for an immense amount of orthodontic work, and I had, like, teeth taken out, and I had, like, a bunch of reconstruction, And now I can use my jaw instead of being locked up like this, and I have to, talk in a certain way because my jaw is way back, and my upper palate isn't solid, and so it like leaks air through the top. Not in a cleft, but in just how the teeth go. It's the curse of being born anywhere on the British Isles, is that you get snaggletooth pretty bad. But I wasn't born there. It's just where my lineage is traced. So speaking of coding, one of the most interesting things that the farms ever managed to coalesce onto itself is the story of Terry A. Davis. And he was God's programmer, and he developed his own operating system, and he created his own compiler, and it was called Temple OS, and it's still available if anybody wants to look into that. It's a very fascinating story. It's a very fascinating man. And in that story, there's one major lesson, which is to say that the online trolling shit that they did to him literally took one of the most valuable resources and burned it for nothing. Those are ultimately, it's not Nolan is, coding. He spends most of his time coding. It's not null. That's the problem on Kiwi farms. It's the exact, and I tried to tell this to people before I got kicked out. Like, it is literally the exact same attitude that killed Terry Davis, that is destroying everything on the internet, is destroying everything on fucking Reddit, Twitter, or Kiwi farms. And quite frankly, like, people prefer to stay to individual chat rooms or places with heavy censorship like Facebook, specifically so their little bit of time that they spend online at work, at breaks, and at home in between chores and duties and other things isn't just a fucking bullshit spectacle for people who spend all their time online. So, there's a lot of issues in coding. There's a lot of issues in America in general. Like, be honest, everybody sees it like this phony patriotism of shit where you like get, if you don't like it, leave. Okay, well, I'm staying here and I'm gonna keep talking. And America has a serious education problem. America has a serious fucking attitude problem. America has a serious financial problem. We keep on thinking that it's okay to go into immense amount of debts and refinance on your loans and get stuck in, because you're not even thinking about the future. Then eventually the bank, when you die and you don't give a shit about passing anything to like the children or anybody else, they repossess everything. Like that's what happened to Christian's house when his mother dies. I'm not sure if she's still around, but she literally reversed financed her home because her mentality is not this, and it's exactly the sort of thing that raised a person like Chris, and that when his father died, he had no structure, no rules. And I even know for a fact that she took advantage of that and originally invited him into her bed. Now that's not a consent of sexual encounter, but that is exactly the process by which she encouraged that to happen, due to her, missing Bob, instead of just being, stoic about her suffering. I'm not trying to pick on an old lady, but the long-term story of Barb, and I've actually watched Chris Chan for 17 years, not 15, for over half of my life. And the story of Barb is a story of neglect and a story of selfishness. And Bob was a really, really great man. Unfortunately, he did cheat on his wife, though. And people speculate that a lot of his suffering is the long-term consequences of him committing adultery. Regardless, Christian could have been anything. Or, it was born Christopher, Christian, then Christine. Whatever. Could have been anything. And instead chose to deliberately squander all the potential, like massive amounts of potential, make it very, very selfish and very, very short-sighted. And ultimately, it's all just a tragedy now. And it didn't have to be. I was very, very, very happy and encouraging of Null when he wanted to be Chris's agent and help him make art, help them make art, and distribute it out for a job. That was really cool. I was very, very happy. when Null made Christian Weston Chandler coins, quickie coins. That was a very wholesome thing, even though he lost a tremendous amount of money, and in just the varieties of scumbagginess that took place in the shipping and processing factors of that. Yeah, it is what it is. The literal, CIA, FBI bubble managed to bleed into that through Belyanka, who was the ultimate progenitor of Chris, and gave him a book of Chris's recent problems, and gave him a book about basically molesting the elderly. So I think that it's possible that there are darker and more deliberate issues at play, because the cybersecurity freaks will touch everything that they can. CIA and FBI touch everything that they possibly can, and it's nothing to say that she wasn't at least inspired by her glowy father. Calling that out. So to get off that, let's talk about religion. It's very easy to pray when you're comfortable. It's a lot harder to pray when you are dry. That is the prayers that the Savior most appreciates. And that's the prayers that your soul is most alleviated by. And what's a good habit to do is, in appropriate pants, kneel and pray. There is a custom in Japan where everybody kneels to show respect for each other. It hurts. It cuts off blood flow to your legs. That's the point. It prevents people from rising quickly to attack each other, but it also reminds people to humble themselves in the presence of others. And that's one of the things that makes a very high trust, high fidelity society. So there is an ancient split. There's a dichotomy in the Bible. The Yahwehist account and the Elohimist account. The Yahwehist account is that Old Testament fire and brimstone, God has immense wrath style of interpreting the words of the prophets and of the patriarchs, essentially, like Abraham was a patriarch. The Elohimist account is the more westernized but kind and positive connotation version of the interpretations. And I have an idea of how that can be properly executed in a way that allows people to read their children the Bible, and then read their teenage children the Bible, and then read even the Bible with their adult children, is to first read the Elohimist account. To first focus on the more positive connotation and not scaring the crap out of your kids by enlightening them about the darkness of the past. This is a big problem with how the Bible has been written and printed and pushed through the Gutenberg printing revolution, which was a good thing for people's brains, but a really bad thing for interpreting the wisdom of our ancestors, which is to read the first part of the Bible, the first Old Testament first, and then read the New Testament after slogging through all of that. It's better to read the New Testament and to parse out the nicer parts and the simpler parts for your children, and then ease them into the reality of the faith and of the vast amount of history that it incorporates, and how history is not a straight line but has many different valleys and hills. People calling animals things and other people automatons is actually a sign of brain damage. It's literally a sign of having damage to a part of your brain that allows you to empathize with other creatures that have feelings, that have brains. Your brain literally developed that center, and when it's damaged, or when people have certain mindsets that minimize that part of the brain and maximize other parts of the brain, like the more libidinal, basal, lizard part of the brain that focuses on pleasures and instant gratifications, then they will literally, deliberately target animals on the road and run them over for no reason, they will find zero question or hesitation when it comes to ending anything's life. And they will view people as nothing but a problem and an obstacle to get around. And those people are absolutely miserable. They're miserable in their day-to-day lives, flitting from pleasure point to pleasure point, and they will be eternally miserable when they realize how much opportunity they wasted. I wish it wasn't this. I wish it wasn't so, but it is. So people have been doing Ozempic a lot, and apparently that does some stuff with your brain chemistry and tells your brain it's not hungry and stuff like that. It'd be intelligent if we actually had any sort of a food shortage, but we don't. We have more food than ever. We waste 40% of the food that America produces every single year. It goes into the ground, it rots. Ultimately, what it's about is minimizing the amount of fat that people intake so that their brains don't form properly. Because your brain, your gray matter, is made out of mono and polyunsaturated fats, glycerides. Whereas the rest of your body is made of amino acids that are built up from plants and proteins. People think, it's very funny, people think that if they eat meat, then they will get muscle. That, like, if you eat a vegetable, do you turn into a vegetable? No. So, like, it's a chemical thing. Your bodies are chemical factories. Your stomach acid breaks stuff down, and it reforms it through the amino acid building blocks. You see? And lots of plants have lots of protein, lots of amino acids, especially root vegetables. And the societies that farmed root vegetables ended up being stronger and more independent than the societies that specialized in cereal grains. I'm not exactly sure the comparison between hunting-gatherer societies and root-based societies, because you got a lot of those around mountains, just around the mountains, you know, planting roots in the side and having them come up. So there also might be a correlation to location. So if you have a very flat plain where you can grow lots of cereals, that's very subject to invasion. So there's probably other factors there, but the science is in on that. You know, the whole grains versus meats thing, when it comes, has multiple factions, and probably the most successful factions are the ones that incorporated things like beets and things like sweet potatoes on top of seasonal hunting and things like that. That seems to be the most healthy and successful societies. Physical sensation fades in your memory, but the feelings rot, are like ghosts of a lingering essence, imprinted for far, far longer. They stay in us, and they become truer and truer as we pass through and away from the physical sensation. And the memories are truer and truer as time goes on. And if you live in a very honest way, in a very productive and peaceful way, you won't be tormented by your memories. You will have that, what I have talked about, glowing golden light inside of yourself. And that is the tether to God. That lets you know that you're still in His good graces. Unlike what world worshippers feel as they get older and older, which is darker and darker, more and more willing to inflict death on others. It's called the death drive. And less motivated to do the things that require things like charisma or faith, or allow you to generate things on the spot and just do it. Doesn't mean you should be a slave, but it definitely doesn't mean you should be a slave to your physical sensations. You know, the giant trucks that are pulling around that I say that I'm not a fan of, I'm not a fan of them, especially Dodge. Dodge is a dog shit, especially Ram company. They're one of the worst, and I see them breaking down all the time, and they're making these gigantic things. Oh yeah, that's great. I really want to bounce around on the inside of my cockpit when my fucking truck breaks out the fucking road underneath me because it's so damn heavy, and I flip into a ditch, and I'm bouncing around like a ping pong on the inside of my fucking cockpit. You know, I hit something. I have a solid steel air dam with no crumple zones, and all the pressure of me hitting it just goes right into the cockpit instead of being absorbed by the bumper. That's great. I love that. I should put a gigantic fucking Saudi flag and an MBS air dam on my fucking truck so I'm at least fucking honest. Sorry about all the swearing, by the way. Just figured I'd emphasize that. We all have enough drama without projecting and absorbing all the varieties of different dramas that other people have. We have our own dramas. We have our own plays inside of our heads, and we really don't have to push that to the side so that we can see a play that doesn't involve us, that we can laugh at the suffering and portions of it in the other person. It's not productive. That doesn't help you solve the drama in your own life, of which there is more and more, the better and more successful you are at operating in the world. There's more and more drama, and the more you upload other people's dramas into your consciousness, the less space you have for your own drama, the more easily exhausted you are, and the less that you're capable of. Straight up. Like most of the people that I saw on Kiwi farms that sit around all day and watch people suffering and get off to it are people with sit-down jobs, do-nothing jobs, jobs that they hate even if they're paid a lot, and they're just sitting there as automatons. They are the automatons they see as other people, and so they're projecting that onto other people. You don't want to be an automaton. You don't want to be an automaton whose purpose is to process drama. That's garbage, dude. That's never how human beings have operated. You know, just think about ancient Greece, and they have tons of tragedy and comedy, and they have tons of things where they had to be automatons in various works, like workshops and mining. But they still managed to have a very, very lively and vibrant culture, which wasn't very homosexual, by the way. That is a complete another myth, and I think that's a myth levied on them by the Turks, that they were homosexual, and so they're all, you know, rape fodder. That's, I'm pretty sure, what happened there. I really, 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 really dislike Erdogan, dislike Ataturk, dislike Turkish culture in general. The Ottoman Empire is an abject failure for all humanity, and it is no coincidence that the CIA loves Turkey, loves Constantinople's hollowed out shell. They love it. And that's the ultimate black mark on Turkey's record. The fact that they still have stay-behind Gladio armies in Turkey, ready to shoot up anybody that questions the direction that the completely anti-Abrahamic, anti-spiritual, and anti-human at the end of the day direction that Turkey is going. It's disgusting. It's one of the most disgusting places on the earth, really. Like, Americans think that their society is decadent and decrepit. Well, do a little research into Turkish society. It is decadent and decrepit. All right, finally getting some of that noise. I need to get some of that on the microphone. That's very, very useful for trying to minimize outside noise and maximize inside noise. It's just hard, you know. One of these days, I think I'm gonna pop into there once I get everything, you know, perfect, and then I'll have even better sound. But here's fine for now. You know, I got major sound dampening construction in here. I think it really hurts a dog's psychology when they have their ears cut, and when they have their tails cut especially. I think it really messes them up, and it makes them more primed to become violent. I think that's actually the biggest problem with pit bulls, is you look for the slits on the bottom of their ears where their top ears are just hanging. And what in the fuck is that for? Why in the fuck are people mutilating dogs' ears and lopping? I can understand, like, okay, so the tail has a reason, right? The tail goes around and it knocks stuff, right? Okay. And dogs can get so excited they can strain their tail. Okay. You're cutting off a portion of the dog's spine, and you're a monster, but at least there's a purpose. What purpose does cutting off a floppy part of a dog's ears that prevents them from hearing every single thing with their super sensitive hearing, what purpose does that serve? Oh, yeah, so they can be a better guard dog. In a society where everybody is fucking, like, scared of each other? It's not pit bulls. It's the people that lop the ears off of puppies that call it cropping. And it should be like extremely illegal. But there's a lot of things that should be illegal that aren't. And there's a lot of things that are illegal that shouldn't. Like, for instance, like marijuana really genuinely should be legal. It is not a harmful substance in any way, shape, or form. And you know, I talk a lot of shit about meth, but meth doesn't cause things like delirium. Benadryl and scopolamine and angel trumpets, otherwise known as datura anoxia, and there's other forms of datura, those cause actual delirium. If you want to know what delirium is when you are literally seeing a hallucination and you feel it and you know it's there and you believe it to be there, and the second you become aware that it might not be there, it disappears. And that is what, like, is severely delirious, extremely mentally ill people have. That's not even schizophrenia, really. What it is an extreme problem with processing histamines in the body and the brain. That's what it is. It revolves around the histamine system. It's a cholinergic effect. It is not caused by methamphetamines or cocaine or weed or alcohol. And people pass it off as it is. Like, once again, going back to the whole, Trump wants, you know, people who are college educated in the country coming in and helping the people that are failing. Like, it might be legitimately more for, you know, he needs a job done and they need to do it. But the fact that Americans can't do the job is a big problem. And you know deep down that Americans can't do the job. What, you're going to have everything plopped in your lap despite the fact that you've not worked on it at all? You know, you think meme magic is going to get you a fucking job? Give me a fucking break. We need college-educated, intelligent people to osmosize their knowledge into our population. Otherwise, we need to get our colleges up and running. We need to get our educational institutions up and running. We need to start funding public schools and keeping perverts from being teachers, because that's the only reason why they want the job, and they're like paying out of their pocket for the variety of shit. And they have really, really, really good teachers. They're taking a lot of fucking flack because they pay out of their pockets, and they're next to these perverts who just want to be around children. Just like Boy Scouts, just like the Catholic Church. These institutions that help people have been hollowed the fuck out in our country. So what the fuck do you want? I'm not afraid of Indians because I know that most Indians I've met have been nicer than the fucking Americans. So anyway, sorry. I'm gonna minimize that. You know, but that, it is what it is. I'm not lying. I'm trying to be fucking honest, brutally honest. And it is what it is, you know. What? Like, is there a plan to educate Americans and put them on a path to where eventually they can start doing you straight up can't do anything complicated. Like, being able to build a fucking in-the-ground pool is not something that gets us to Mars, dude. It's not. It's fucking dog shit garbage. It's not necessary. You can only need so many fucking construction men. You only need so many fucking call center workers. And then what? Like, really, where are our fucking factories? H.W. Bush decided to ship them out. So, ultimately, like, you know, I say, oh, the Zionists have been really, like, doing bad with, they're inheriting the power structure of our system. The Masons weren't doing a good job either. They set it up for failure. They set it up to sell. They set it up exactly like companies are set up today, to get up to a certain point and then cash out and bro down. That's it. And you know what? I think the fact that people are willing to expand and explore different options that aren't just a complete overwhelming of the American population with faceless, countless immigrants, but instead college-educated people that, you know, instead of the immigration that the Democratic Party wants to do is bring in millions of low-paid workers to work slave jobs. The H-1B visas are literally college educated. They're not the best and the brightest, but they're a cut above H-2B visas, which is what, you know, the Arab sheik Disneylands have been built with this literal slave labor, H-2B visas. So anyways, that's a good thing to think about, Think about how you can try and participate in this situation to make it better instead of complaining and moaning and crying like I've been over the last 2 days. No more of that. That's done. I got my therapy session out. I needed to talk about that for a while. I haven't been able to talk to many people about that, Yeah. Noel actually had the balls to tell me because I don't have money that I projected, Who's to say if I have money or not? He doesn't know because I didn't talk about my money. Because I don't have money or a business that I'm running that which would actually nullify his point that I'm not allowed to sue him. Bro, that's not how the law works, dude. You're not American Psycho, okay? You're not allowed to do whatever you want to people just because they have less than you, buddy. It's a movie, okay? All right. See you later.